welcome to another edition of the House Whisperer Show on WWDB Talk 860. I'm Barry Reisman, inviting you to stay tuned for expert advice about maintaining your house from the roof to the basement, featuring professional home inspector Jack Milne. And Jack is right here. And Jack, we are ready for you.
Well, thank you, Barry. It's another Sunday, and I hope you have your ears wide open because with the real estate market really now in full swing, hallelujah, anyone who's really interested in buying a home in Philadelphia, I'm going to ask that you turn the volume up a little bit because I think one of the biggest secrets out there that nobody even knows about, and particularly the buying public and a lot of the realtors, they don't know that a license is required in the county of Philadelphia for the home inspectors. And it was definitely instrumental in getting this law passed and written. And I thought I would kind of tell the story as to how this came to being. But before I kick in, of course, I have to thank my sponsors because without them, you wouldn't be hearing my voice today. And so with spring in the air, think of Bucksmont Inspections if your on-site sewage system requires either pumping or maintenance. While they're out there, have them probe the field and make sure that the field is as healthy as the holding tank. You can contact them at 215-669-4213. As it's now the end of April, and April showers bring May flowers, but they also bring termites. So if you're finding wings and body parts of carpenter ants or termites, please reach out to Borough Exterminating. And there is 610-586-5640. Of course, brainfleshgear.com. I'm ready to pick up my shirts and go on this trip, and I can't wait. I did hear from Kevin actually yesterday, and when I'm done the show, I'm going to blast over there and pick them up. So brainfleshgear.com. It's literally that simple. Anything that you need unique, Kevin can help you with that. Pest Blaster, radon testing, mold testing, wood-destroying insect evaluations, pest removal. And I'm very proud to say that Michael is now licensed in the state of New Jersey, Michael Canner, to place radon canisters. So that's a huge step for him. It's a great help for us at Tri-County and my home buyers. So wonderful. I'm very pleased with them on that. And then Tri-County Inspection Company, again, we've conducted professional home inspections since 1985. Well over 71,000 inspections we've conducted since that point. We offer a narrative report, and my motto is inspect with the best. And I do my best every day to put the best people together with my buying public to help them with the largest purchase of their lives. So we're at 215-295-2030. In the Lehigh Valley, 610-346-7880. And South Jersey, 856-853-4224. So last month, I delved into the email box and spent the entire show based on a question from Elise from Washington's Crossing. And we talked about New Jersey and Pennsylvania home inspectors' regulations and laws. And I asked that if you do plan to buy real estate in either state, that you revisit the segment on thehousewhisperershow.com or email me at thehousewhisperershow@gmail.com. And by the way, and I've been blasting this one across the airwaves over the last few weeks. My show is on WWDB is moving to 11 a.m. on Sundays on June 1st. So do me a favor, wake up, have coffee, have breakfast, read the paper, and then tune me in at 11 because I want to become your go-to guy for real estate information on Sundays. So again, today's topic is your home inspector licensed in Philadelphia? Who knew? And really the joke is that no one knows. And the city, unfortunately, has not done anything since 2003 to get the word out because it's the buying public that needs to know that a license is required to conduct real estate inspections in the city. But for a little bit of history, I'm going to kind of start you at the beginning. There's a legislator, and Barry, you may know him, Paul Moriarty.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He used to be on Channel 3, I think.
Exactly. and he's now a politician in New Jersey. I'm not quite sure what area, but
That's
he's
right.
kind of like mid to South Jersey. And way back in 1991, he actually set up a house with hidden cameras to film inspectors as part of his investigative reports with a local Philadelphia TV station. Again, I'm not quite sure which one it was.
Channel 3, I think.
Was it Channel 3?
I'm pretty sure.
But because of that segment being aired, Councilman Kinney, who's still a councilman with the city of Philadelphia, without any input from the local chapters of home inspectors who work both inside and outside the city, wrote a bill in 1991, which in essence made home inspectors almost sub-agents for the Department of Licensing and Inspections. So the way the law was crafted, the home inspector had to do the following. Number one, they had to be registered with the city and obtain a business privilege license. Two, they had to make the city of Philadelphia listed as a non-party if the inspector got sued, which is still true today. It was regarding third-party liability. So although they wanted us registered and licensed in the city, they didn't want any part of it if we were sued. It's like having your cake and eating it too. The biggest thing was that we had to report to the Division of Licensing and Inspections any, and I make that very bold, any material defects that we may find within 72 hours of the inspection so that their employees could verify the defects and have the sellers make repairs prior to settlement. So we figured that on average between 50 to 70 home inspections are being done daily, at least, not only in the city of Philadelphia, but in the county as well. My problem was the Division of L&I only had 9 inspectors. So how on earth could they actually go out and verify what we do for a living in a timely fashion? So when I was notified in 2002, so look at the dates, okay? We're going back, a couple years, 11, okay, that this law was on the books but never enacted. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was doing an inspection in New Jersey. I got the call from the city, the Division of L&I, stating that within 30 days, the city of Philadelphia was going to implement this law that was now 12 years old. And knowing that the law was on the books, I pulled it, I read it, and I gave a call to the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, because according to the city, they can circumvent Pennsylvania law even though the Pennsylvania law was passed the previous year. So in other words, folks, Philadelphia can say, the hell with the state, we're going to create our own law. So I reached out to the executive director. At that time it was Diane Lucidi. I'm not sure if she's still with the board or not, but I put in a call and said, Diane, you don't know me, and I don't know you, but we better get together real quick, because if this law goes into effect in 30 days, honestly, settlement is going to be in pencil. So we did meet. We had great discussions. We tried to figure out a strategy, and the first thing that we had to do was, one, form an alliance, but we also contacted and met with Councilman Kinney, with the directors of L&I, so that we could kind of come together and review this law and hopefully make it mirror the Pennsylvania home inspection law. So it took about 9 months of meetings with the Division of L&I, with the councilmen, with the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors representatives, their president and board members, to rewrite the law. And some of these things that came out with this law was that, as I explained to everyone on board, is that home inspectors are ghosts. We come into town, we come out of town, and nobody knows when we're in and out. So the enforcement of the law is going to prove difficult. 2, as I talked about this earlier, only 9 employees are hired by the Division of L&I to evaluate people's properties. So they were way understaffed. And again, being agents of L&I without permits, without payments, without benefits as employees, there was no way that we as home inspectors could take on that additional liability to represent the city. So it took 9 months, but as of 2003, and it's ironic because it was April 15th when that law passed, and that was just a week or so ago in 2003, that it became law. Now, what I found ironic is, here I'm proud of the work we did. The councilman was in full session. One of their aides came out to me in the meeting and said, just by the way, Jack, we want to let you know that the board has exempted architects, engineers from the law. So, in other words, engineers and architects, by their license, can't conduct home inspections in the city of Philadelphia. And they have to be under their umbrella of their license to conduct these inspections. So as the buying public, you need to know that too, and especially sellers, because if an architect shows up, he may not know anything about a boiler, but if he thinks he can do a competent home inspection, well, I pity the buyer. But again, that's a very clear aspect of the law that most people don't know.
Hey, Jack, this is a good spot for us to take a quick break and come right back with more.
Well, let's do it, because I am ready to go.
All right. We'll be right back with Jack at WWDB on the House Whisperer Show.
Boro Exterminating has been specializing in wood-destroying insect inspection and control for over 40 years, serving Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. All inspectors are state certified and ensure providing their clients with professional inspections and treatments. Boro not only performs conventional termite treatments, but also handles special services like historic buildings and homes with wells, creeks, or ponds. The client is assured that all treatments will be performed safely when you hire Boro to do the work. They also provide radon testing in their service area. Boro's full-time office staff is available to help you schedule an appointment. Just call 610-586-5640 or send an email request to boroinspects@verizon.net. That's 610-586-5640 or email at boroinspects@verizon.net.
Specially created t-shirts by BrainFlushGear.com offer the extreme sports enthusiast an opportunity to have a clothing line available that suits their sport. BrainFlushGear.com understands that when we get the moment where we can jump on our motorcycles, wave runners, surfboards, snowmobiles, or skateboards, it can be priceless. They offer custom artwork including silk screening, transfers, and embroidery. Speak to one of their consultants today, and they'll help you create your own Brain Flush. Visit BrainFlushGear.com or email them at contact@BrainFlushGear.com.
For your septic inspection and testing needs, please consider Bucksmont Inspections. They've been serving the Bucks and Montgomery County areas for over 15 years. As members of the Pennsylvania Septic Management Association, the Pennsylvania Association of Sewage Enforcement Officers, and the Pennsylvania Association for Professional Soil Scientists, Bucksmont Inspections can inspect your existing septic system or test for your new septic system placement. Please call Rob Bowie at 215-669-4213 and say you heard their ad on the House Whisperer Show.
As the summer months quickly arrive and the temperatures gradually rise, so do the odds of all those filthy and unwanted critters invading your home like rodents, roaches, termites, and flies. Oh my! This summer, if you want to feel safe and secure from a possible creeping, crawling disaster, do yourself a favor and call the exterminating experts at Pest Blaster for all your pest control needs, including tests for radon and mold. Please visit pestblaster.com and you'll be sold. 215-295-5555.
Tri-County Inspection Company has been providing professional home inspections, commercial inspections, and historic property evaluations for over 25 years. Tri-County Inspection Company covers 13 counties, serving both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. They've performed inspections for over 70,000 clients and are members of the American Society of Home Inspectors, as well as the Pennsylvania Home Inspectors Coalition. They are licensed in both Philadelphia and New Jersey. For all of your real estate transactions, call Tri-County Inspections at 215-295-2030. For their New Jersey clientele, call 856-853-4224. In PA, call 215-295-2030. In New Jersey, 856-853-4224.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard.
And here we are once again back with Jack Milne, the House Whisperer. And Jack, you have us all glued to our radios or our computers or our smartphones, and we're ready for more.
Well, thank you, Barry. Again, this segment is really important to the Philadelphia buyer, and I think as important to a Philadelphia seller, because the home inspectors in Philadelphia to conduct business must be licensed. And I meet with realtors every day that are not aware of this. And the city had promised that they would promote this when the bill passed and became law in 2003, and unfortunately I haven't seen it. And we do a lot of business in the city, and I'm darn proud to offer my license to buyers who are interested in using Tri-County services in the city. So to backtrack a little bit, the law was passed in 2003. It was voted 13-0, but unfortunately I think for me it was a bit of a shallow victory because of now this law being in effect for 10 years, 11 years now, Barry. You know, there hasn't been any advertisements, no notification, no enforcement. So one of the things that we talked about when we established the law was a penalty for the home inspector that may not be licensed. And one of the folks at the meeting says, well, as penalty, we'll take their tools. And I just kind of cocked my neck and said, you've got to be kidding. You don't even know where we're at, and you're going to take our tools? I said, I think it would be better if we have a financial penalty rather than taking someone's tools. It's like taking our carpenter's tools or an electrician's tool.
Right.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen. So what I did ask, though, is through the division of L&I, is to find out how long it would take to get a license issued. So I said, why don't we use my company? I've got 5 inspectors. I'll pay the fees, and let's see how long it takes. So I ended up actually, Barry, being the number 1 licensed home inspector in the city, and I am quite proud of that. But it did take a lot of volunteer time and personal time to get the law crafted. But my guys became number 2, 3, 4, and 5, which I thought was pretty awesome. So like anything that's new, the fee structures for us are $300 every 3 years, which, as we all work the averages, came out to $100 a year. After the law went into place, I have some good friends who are registered plumbers and licensed electricians in the city, and their fee structures were $50 a year. So I went back to L&I and said, how come you're charging us $100? And they said, well, you were the one that brought it up, and we weren't going to sit there and argue. If you wanted to pay more than everybody else, so be it. So, again, a shallow victory. So we do have to pay a licensing fee, and part of the licensing fee is to be listed on the Philadelphia website for under contractors. And guys, like any website, you have to kind of trowel through it. And it starts with phila.gov. You look for contractors, and then finally, if you have great perseverance, you actually find out where the home inspectors are listed. Now, when the law went into effect in 2003, I would assume, well, I knew at that point that there were approximately 40 home inspectors who had their license. But I think after the first 3-year period, when they began to realize how ineffective this law was, and the bottom line, that I think the only reason they created it was to create a wage tax for those people who come into town, a lot of home inspectors said, the heck with it. And so they dropped out. But this is where it really has an effect on the buying and selling of real estate, because I have a really good friend of mine who's a realtor in Center City, and he's actually a buyer's agent, and he called me, I guess 2 months ago, and said, Jack, are you a licensed Philadelphia inspector? And I said, yes, actually I am. I'm number one. He goes, well, I found out the other day that the inspector that these folks chose to buy their home was not licensed. I said, then, Mr. Agent, that inspection doesn't count. He goes, what do you mean it doesn't count? It doesn't count. If I was the buyer, or if I was the seller of that property, and I realized that the inspector who was representing my buyer, was not licensed, then whatever that inspector found doesn't count. And unfortunately, the buyer who did not know can no longer negotiate the material defects that may have been found by that unlicensed inspector. So the ramifications were huge between both buyer and seller, listing agent, selling agent. So I'm not sure what the outcome was, but boy, it put a dark cloud over that real estate transaction. So I don't know if the seller allowed the buyer to get himself another inspector, or if the seller held to his guns and said, hey, you had your shot, you're out of time, you're buying this house now as is. So that's why it's really critical to the buying public to make sure that their inspector is in fact licensed. It's too important not to ask. So due diligence. Again, I ask that you go by referral. Okay, the realtors should know, but may not know if the inspector's licensed. Thus, when you start making your phone calls asking for a home inspection by a home inspector, that should be the first question you should ask. I'm buying a house in Philadelphia. Are you licensed? Can you give me your license number? How long have you been licensed? Is it new? Is it old? I mean, I've been licensed since 2003. I'm actually waiting on my license for my newest inspector. It's been a couple of weeks. He should have it any day, but it's critical for him to have it for my buyers. So it's not a new law. It's an old law. Make sure that when he is licensed that you can negotiate your findings, because that's what home inspectors do. We identify material defects. The inspection company that you call, again, should be upfront with you and disclose that he or she is, in fact, licensed. Again, the buyer can give up any and all rights to negotiate material defects as described by both the Philadelphia law and by the Pennsylvania law. And unfortunately, a lawsuit may be filed against the real estate professional who recommends the inspector, who may not be licensed. So the real estate professional needs to know and needs to do their due diligence to find out if, in fact, the inspector is licensed. And like all professionals, some inspectors choose to work in the cities, others don't. But I think, again, the real reason why a lot of these home inspectors step back is because of the collection of the wage tax, which to me is a crime anyway. But that's a whole different topic. So as a buyer, I ask that you do your homework. As a seller and as a real estate professional, it's very important that you do your homework as well. So I ask that if you know of anyone who's buying real estate in Philadelphia, be it a friend, a family member, if you know realtors that work within the city, please pass this along, because about the only way that these folks are going to find out is by word of mouth or else a lawsuit. And nobody wants to take 5 years of their life with a lawsuit for a simple question that is, are you licensed in the city of Philadelphia as a home inspector?
Do you have to take any kind of a test to get a license, or just pay the fee, or how does that work?
Well, you still have to follow the letter of the law from the Pennsylvania home inspection law. But what's interesting is that one of these national organizations, who you can take an online exam and pay your $200 via credit card to become an INCO compliant inspector in Pennsylvania. I sat down with one of the secretaries from the division of L&I, and I stood behind her, and she actually took the test, and I answered all the questions. And within 15 minutes, they asked her for a credit card, and basically said, "Congratulations, you're a compliant home inspector in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania."
How about that?
And it was like a shock and awe. I mean, the folks from L&I stood behind me and said, "We can't have these people."
Wow. If a home inspector misses something, this would never happen with you, I know, but if a home inspector misses something, does he stand to have to pay for what he missed, or does he have any liability?
Yes, yes and no, Barry. I mean, we're all humans. We can't still see through walls, and home inspections really are like a snapshot in time. So a really good home inspector should find, I'd say, 90% of issues, but I don't think anyone's ever 100%. We do our best every day, though, believe me.
Well, on that happy note, Jack, we are out of time.
My goodness. But, I do want to go back one more time real quick, Barry, and just say, remember, buyers, home inspectors must have errors and omissions insurance, but to make a claim, it has to be willful misconduct. In other words, or gross negligence, which means that the inspector really had to mess up and almost be blind to the problem that he did not disclose to you for a claim to be made.
Make it easy for you. Just call Jack Milne. He'll take care of you, right?
I do my best every day, Barry. So,
always good having you on the air.
Well, thank you, Barry. And as it is closing, as I like to say, as it is the weekend, please spend time with friends and family. And I look forward to talking to you next week on the House Whisperer.
All right, and tune in again next week for another edition of the House Whisperer Show with professional home inspector Jack Milne. And you can listen to previous programs, or if you have any questions, visit thehousewhisperershow.com.